Okay, this is Bible Basics, episode 2, I guess we can call it. And this one's about C.S. Lewis and his Trilemma. You may have heard of it. If you haven't, don't worry about it. I'll explain it as we go through. But I encountered this when I was 26 years old. 26, 27. I can't stop and do the math right now, but that's close enough. 3/4 of a century, or 1/4 of a century old. And I've now lived almost 3/4 of a century. But at any rate, if you listen to the first episode in this series, you know how I met a high school classmate who I had not seen in 10 years. For lunch, for a business lunch, because I had heard he was in the same industry that I was in, and I had started a business, and I was thinking about hiring him. So I said, why don't you meet me for lunch? So we meet for lunch, and at lunch, he tells me that he's recently accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. And I immediately thought, well, then why didn't you tell me that? I would not have had followed through with this lunch, because I am sure not going to hire somebody from my business that talks crazy talk like that. At least that's what I thought at the time. That people that talked about Jesus in settings other than church seemed just like fringe people to me. And now I am one. But at any rate, he proceeds to give me his testimony, and I endured it for as long as I could. I was polite. And I just excused myself when the lunch was over and moved on, and didn't think much more about it. But then sometime subsequently, I guess it was maybe later that day, or certainly within a day or two at the most, all of a sudden I had been out to lunch with someone else or by myself or whatever. Came back to my office. At the time, I just started the business, so it was just me working for myself. And there's these books sitting outside my office. Someone had put these books there. And I have copies of them now. None of them are the actual books that he left, because he was loaning me some of his books. And over the years, I have gotten a few of them just to try to remember that. One of them was this book called A Time to Be Born and a Time to Die. And this was by a guy who had written the Gospel According to Peanuts. So he'd written popularly. And it's got a lot of pictures in it, black and white pictures. But they're all based on the book of Ecclesiastes. That's why the title, A Time to Be Born and a Time to Die. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Most of all, I kind of recoiled at the side of the books, because I thought, this is evangelistic stuff. I don't want any part of this. But I kind of flipped through here and saw the pictures and read some of the captions. And, really a lot of the sayings from Ecclesiastes made sense to me. But I wasn't about to take this guy's claim seriously. And I had this other book in here, How Should We Then Live? And this is by a man named Francis Schaeffer, who's since deceased. And he was a Christian intellectual, and I don't know if you call him a genius or not, but he was highly respected, highly intelligent, and writing way, way over my head. He was writing about all the things that I had missed when I was not paying attention in world history. And he's writing about art and philosophy. And this guy that I had lunch with was really big on Francis Schaeffer, but it just didn't do much for me. And then there was this little book, Mere Christianity. I didn't know exactly obviously I knew what Christianity was, but I didn't know what it meant, Mere Christianity, by C.S. Lewis. I didn't recognize the name. I didn't know there was anything to it. Well, I just began flipping through this book, just the same way you see me flipping through it right now. Because I knew he'd want to say, hey, did you read the books? I was going to give the books back, of course. I didn't want to keep them. And he was going to ask what I thought of them. So I thought, well, I'll at least kind of flip through here. So I'm flipping through, and one of the places I flipped to, I read it just in different places, and one of the places I flipped to was this. It comes at the end of chapter 3, I think. Yeah. But I wasn't reading it sequentially. I just happened to come upon it. Just pure coincidence. And I'll explain why I say coincidence in a minute. And here's what he writes. He says, I am trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on a level with a man who says he is a poached egg. I still laugh at that after all these years. I certainly laughed at it the first time I read it. I just admired British wit. I don't know how I knew the guy was British. Maybe it was because in the things I skimmed around and found, he talked like this. But no American would say on a level with a man who says he is a poached egg. We might say on a level with a man who's, and then put in some other metaphor. But a poached egg, that's something only a Brit would say. I hope they don't mind me calling them Brits. Anyway, it says, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman, or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come away with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. And it was like a two before it hit me right between the eyes when I read this paragraph. That's the last paragraph of that chapter. Now, how I happened to pick on that book, and when I said it's a coincidence, turns out this is like a very famous passage. Anybody who knows C.S. Lewis, and I didn't know him, but anybody who knows him knows about this passage. It's called a Trilemma because it has three parts to it. Is he Lord, lunatic, or a liar? And it's a play. I don't know if it's just a play on the words dilemma, meaning you're caught between two choices, or if it's an actual. I think it probably was an actual word, a trilemma. I don't know if there's a quad dilemma, or I guess there is a quad dilemma. But to me, that word trilemma didn't come into my mind. What came into my mind when I read this is that's logical, and it completely pulled out from under my feet the foundation I'm trying to do quote marks, the foundation I had been standing on, which was agnosticism, which I don't know. Can't say. Now, some people take what I consider a much more aggressive stance with their agnosticism, which is to say, nobody can know. Not only do I not know, nobody can know. Well, I didn't have that kind of aggressive posture that nobody could know. But I felt safe in saying, I don't know. And I figured if there is a God, he's grading on the curve. And as long as I'm better than at least, 50% of the people, I don't know how steep the curve is here, but I just figured I had to be better than enough people. I don't know why I had it in my head that God was going to limit himself to a certain number of people. But that was certainly the way I thought about it. Of course, I think everybody that had any kind of religious or barely or mere Christian teaching when they were young had this idea of there's heaven and hell, you're going one place or another. It's a binary choice, and so you're either in or out. So, but this really unsettled me. I was not ready to say that Jesus was Lord. I was not ready to say that the guy that loaned me the books was on the right track. But I did come immediately to this point. I was immediately brought to it, which was, I can't keep saying what I've been saying. I've got to check this out. And I needed to go find out what it, exactly what Jesus said. Now, I had been raised Roman Catholic, so I remembered certain things, but, it had been a while. I hadn't been a kid. I had graduated from college when I was 20, and I'd been out in the working world, and so I was far removed from all this stuff. So I thought to myself, Maybe not exactly these words, but this was the thought. I'm going to have to go read the Bible for myself and find out what it says, because this makes too much sense. This means I've got to make a choice. So let me go make it. I am trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with a man who says he is a poached egg, or he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman, or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come away with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. Powerful, powerful words, and these are the words of C.S. Lewis. I read them to you verbatim. But he was not the one who invented or came up with this trilemma idea. It had preceded him. There were several people. The oldest reference I could find to it was a man named John Duncan, who lived, he was born in 1796 and died in 1870. And here's the way he worded it. It's much shorter. It's just three sentences. Christ either deceived mankind by conscious fraud, or was himself deluded and self-deceived, or he was divine. There is no getting out of this trilemma. It is inexorable. So this was John Duncan. I think he too was a British man. I'm not sure. But the point is that C.S. Lewis did not invent this trilemma. It had preceded him. Maybe it even preceded John Duncan. But it makes perfect sense. And it drove me to read the Bible for myself, to read what he said carefully. I actually thought that when I read the Bible, it would be uncertain, the kind of things he said, that it wouldn't exactly fall into this category, that he had to be what he said he was. I remembered a few things from my Roman Catholic parochial school attendance the first 6 years of my life. Not a lot, but I remembered a few things. And I thought, okay, there's a chance that this trilemma thing holds up. But I was really putting my hope in I'll be able to read the Bible and see for myself. So I went home and pulled this off the coffee table, brushed all the dust off of it, because we had been given it when we were married, which was the week after I graduated from college, and we were given this as a wedding present, and put it on the coffee table because that's where you put things like this, and never looked at it again for those whole 6 or 7 years, whatever it was. Until then, I went home and started reading it, and this was a Protestant Bible, and of course it's not that different from the Roman Catholic Bible, but at any rate, I knew it was a Protestant Bible, but I just couldn't. The English was just too hard for me to read, the Old English. And so I went to the bookstore and bought this. I think it cost $5 at the time. It's wrapped in cellophane, and it's got this kivar, I think you call it, kivar. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. So I started reading this, and it's in plain English, today's English version. I started reading it. And I read, and I came to find out that C.S. Lewis's trilemma, or John Duncan's trilemma, however you want to mention it, really was a fair and accurate way to put things. That Jesus, he was either lying and knew he was lying, or he'd lost his mind, or he was telling the truth. And out of those three choices, the only one that made any sense was that he was telling his truth. But the main thing I wanted to get across in this episode is to understand what that trilemma is. That's very important. I'll make reference to it in the future episodes. And so it is real important that you understand this trilemma. So Thanks for listening or thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.